Today on the In All Kinds of Weather forecast, we play catch up. A lot of things to get up to speed on in all sports, highlighted by football recruiting, basketball recruiting, baseball, tennis, Olympics, and more. This is the In All Kinds of Weather forecast. Welcome back to the In All Kinds of Weather forecast. I am your host, Neil Schulman, back after a month off. Long story, very short. I took a new job that comes with a lot of added responsibilities and training, all while shopping for a new computer because the old one was worked pretty hard for the past 6 years and could no longer produce shows. Also, Chris is studying for exams at work. Mike Gillespie, also super busy with a job transition of his own as well. So we just took a month hiatus for us all to figure stuff out. We're back today with so much to talk about, and let's start with football recruiting. Just jump right into it. And there's a lot of it to break down. First, the commits. 4 of them, all within 9 days of each other. A 5th would later join them. But let's start with that 4 in the end of June. June 21st, to be exact. Tight ends coach Russ Callaway and Billy Napier heading to the Northwest, or at least relative to Gainesville, and beating out the Mississippi schools as well as LSU for in-state tight end Micah Jones, the number 27 tight end in the class, according to On3. Didn't really seem to have a difficult time choosing Florida, forming very strong bonds with Callaway and Napier. Made it a pretty easy call for him. Callaway establishing contact with him on the very first day he was allowed to, never let up, and that was the end of that. He does not have the hype that a lot of guys in the 2025 cycle that have Florida's attention do, but the upside's there. 6'5", 245, still room to grow. He's got a lot of physical strength to him. Definitely has that build he needs for SEC football. No one's going to compare him to a Kyle Pitts or a Ben Troop or anyone like that, but he can make plays with the ball in the air. He is playing tight end to catch the football first and block second, which, by the way, there's also tape of him doing as well. So it's not like he can't block, but he is a pass-catching tight end. That was the first one. Joshua Moore was the second one to pull the trigger for Florida, committing to the Gators over in-state rivals FSU and Miami 5 days after Jones did on June 26th. Moore probably is the biggest, I would venture to say, of the batch in June. He fought through an injury to enjoy a big season in 23 for West Broward High School in South Florida, reeling in 50 catches for 835 yards and 9 touchdowns. Probably has something to do with why On3 rated him as the number 9 receiver in the entire class. And the stock only promises to keep on growing. He's 6'3", 205, still with more room to fill out the frame, and comes equipped with ball skills that just cannot be taught. Also has a very strong relationship with DJ Lagway, which was a part of why he committed to Florida. The 5-star quarterback signee for the Gators out of the state of Texas does have that gravitational pull. And as his future teammate Joshua Moore has said to On3, they've got a general at quarterback. Everybody else ain't got a quarterback, which, okay, pretty strong endorsement of DJ Lagway, kind of an indictment of the other schools as well, but more of an endorsement pro Lagway, pro Florida, and what he means to the perception of the program to recruits. 3 days after that, on June 29th, Napier and company completed the hat trick with Tayshawn Gelsey, who picked Florida over pretty diverse batch of competitors in Auburn, Tulane, Kentucky, and Central Florida. Was then a 3-star, since then has been bumped up to a 4-star. A nice pickup for the Gators. A wide receiver, according to 247 Sports, On3 has him listed as a tight end. It's kind of that versatile, I should say, hybrid sort of pass-catching guy that can be used virtually. There's the use of that word that I wanted to use. Virtually can be used anywhere on the field, aside from just taking handoffs in the backfield like a running back. But Napier and his staff seem to agree with the second of those two categorizations. They've delegated Russ Callaway, the tight ends coach, not receivers coach, Billy G, to handle his recruitment process. Even though he does play receiver, in high school. The vision for him seems pretty straightforward. Utilize that frame to be a mismatch nightmare. He's 6'4", 220. That's now before his senior year of football. He's going to keep growing. Comes to Florida. Got to hope that John Miles and the strength and conditioning coaches will do their jobs and keep getting him stronger and stronger yet. And he is a mismatch nightmare for Riverside High School as a sophomore, putting up 32 catches, 503 yards, pretty good. And then he almost doubled that in 23, pulling in 48 receptions for 859 and 9 touchdowns as a junior. Along the way, the tape shows off the athletic abilities that could, if he fills out his frame and adjusts to life in the SEC, could potentially continue to be problematic at Florida. Now, that triad of pass catchers doesn't really do a whole lot to help the Gators' recruiting class rankings, regardless of which site you trust or like. Same number of total commits as FSU. After that third commit there, the Gators 25 class was way behind FSU's class when at that moment they both had 8 commits. Now, again, things have happened since then. Florida has added another commit. But as we entered the month of July, Florida and FSU both had 8 commits, and Florida's class was 65 in the 247 Sports Composite rankings, 40 in the On3 industry rankings. Meanwhile, FSU's was 42nd in 247, so 23 spots ahead of Florida, and number 9 in On3. That's a jump of 31 spots. So again, things have happened since then, but even after cleaning up at a position of need for Florida, it showed that that was not enough to close the gap. And it's true that the rankings don't tell the whole story, because they don't. Because again, we're going to talk about the fourth major commitment, the 5th overall. Florida got a punter, which, to cite other people in this fan base, punters are people too, but it's not the kind of needle-moving commitment. I think we can all agree. While he might be very good, Hayden Craig might be a very good punter for Florida, it doesn't really excite the fan base that much, nor does it move the needle that much in the recruiting rankings. So, talking about those two things, those 3 guys commit to Florida, and the ranking doesn't jump very high. But it does give the Gators all the momentum in the summer. And if you can sustain it, which is what seems to be happening now, you could be in a good spot if you can win the games on the field to back it up, which we'll talk about that plenty throughout the remainder of the summer. But suffice to say, talent likes talent. Good players like good players. Good players like the idea of playing with good players. And once you can get that snowball rolling down the hill, it does become easier and easier to pick up steam. And that is where we get to the case of linebacker Miles Johnson, originally committed to Alabama, no longer committed to Alabama, now committed to Florida. Off the page, nothing really jumps out at you. I mean, he's a 3-4-star borderline prospect. 247 and ESPN do have him as a 4-star. I think we could call him a fringe 4-star. I think that's intellectually honest enough. And then, there's the fact that he flipped from Alabama to Florida, which is always going to be a big deal, because even though, yes, I realize it's DeBoer's program now and not Saban's, Alabama is still Alabama. It is still literally an elephant of a program. And if Alabama wants you, regardless of who the coach is, the chances are you can play. And that is the case with Miles Johnson. He's quick. He can sift through the garbage, get through the clutter, get to the backfield. He can string it out and make a tackle to the sideline. He's intelligent. He's got more than enough capabilities for Mike Peterson to be able to work with him. And now we get to the upcoming commitment of Vernell Brown, or we'll hold that for 1 second as I tell you guys about our new sponsor. Yes, and All Kinds of Weather Forecast has a new sponsor. We are proudly sponsored by 401k Generation, the wealth management company that helps you invest today for your future tomorrow. Their team of advisors is committed to providing guidance and education for your 401k plan and its participants, and they also offer a range of enrollment solutions tailored to meet the unique needs of your company's 401k plan. Whether it's savings for your child's college, investment advice, even your retirement, 401k Generation's team of advisors makes getting to know you their top priority. Their advisors are going to tailor a path to assist you in navigating life's financial milestones and reaching your financial goals. That's 401k Generation, building stronger futures one generation at a time. To learn more, contact them at 866-998-5875 or visit their website at 401kgeneration.com. We are very excited about that. Great company, great people behind it, a great product. Definitely look into their services. We definitely recommend you look into their services if you want to be in the best hands possible. So that is that. Okay, Vernell Brown, the younger Vernell Brown. That commitment is coming up on the 21st, which is not that far away from now, and that would be a big time pickup for the Gators. Now, I did not actually have him on my list of top 10 targets to watch for when I released that initial big board for the Gators back in January, and that's just because I didn't have any wide receivers on that top 10 because I was much more focused on the trenches, which are the most important positions in football. Had to put a quarterback in there, so I put Ryan Finley in there, and then everyone else was on the defense. So that's why he wasn't there. But this is a big time fish in the sea, to speak in the metaphor. Big time. Legacy kid. He can play. He is an explosive athlete. And again, there's the momentum. Is it the biggest need to have a wide receiver? No, not at all. Especially after the hat trick that Florida just pulled at the end of June. But again, talent is talent. Any elite talent without massive character concerns that comes to Gainesville is certainly going to be welcome with open arms. And this kid is an explosive athlete who can make things happen with the ball in his hands as a slot receiver. Yeah, it's not the biggest need for Florida in terms of guy on the board, or in terms of players on the board, but it could be what spurs the next big need guy to commit to Florida. And now, this is where we have to talk about there have been a lot of concerning misses for Florida. And just an FYI, we'll define it here very clearly so we don't go back and forth on Twitter in the comments debating what we think a miss is. The word miss, to me, that's just my opinion, but I define a recruiting miss is any player that fits one of the three criteria. One, he is an in-state 4-star or 5-star at a position that Florida does not already have a high 4-star or 5-star athlete at that same position already committed. And I don't care where in the process you lose him. If you never bothered to recruit him, that's an embryonic stage miss, probably the most embarrassing type of miss that you never even contacted him. But if he never came to campus or he never called you back, if there was some interest early on but never really stayed that way, then you lost him early or somewhere in the middle of the process. If you were a semifinalist and didn't make his final list, which is unfortunately a thing because people between the ages of 15, 16, 17, 18 like to milk that for all they're worth, but I also understand it because, they're big time athletes and they deserve that moment. So I understand both sides of that. But anyway, if you can't make his finalist list, that's a miss in its own. And if you make his finalist list and you don't get the kid and he doesn't choose your hat, miss. So anywhere in the process that you do not collect the commitment of an in-state 4-star or 5-star at a position that the Gators don't already have a blue chip athlete at that same position already committed. That's one. Number two, a miss is a legacy kid of playable caliber. If he's not ranked, if he's a preferred walk-on or he's a 2-star, not even rated, all right, whatever, fine. If he's a 3-star or better and his dad played football for the Gators and you don't land him, and you don't have someone significantly better in that class, and even still, I would say even still, like if you have, Emmitt Smith's son already played, but like let's say you had like a Jaden Bach committed at running back, you still wouldn't kill you to get another one, and then you miss on his son, EJ Smith. Like that's still not good. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. If you miss on a legacy kid who can play for the University of Florida, miss if he's a 3-star or better. And number three, if he was an out-of-state recruit that you at least had some semblance of interest in and that feeling was mutual and he showed that he really did at least kind of want to play for the Gators, and he chose a different school after visiting Florida or Florida visiting him, that's a miss. So with that in mind, yeah, there are going to be misses. Of course, there are going to be misses because recruiting is essentially a game of sales, and you'll never bat 100% in the sales game. In fact, you'll never bat 90% in the sales or 80% of sales or 70% of sales for that matter. If you win 60% of your sales targets, that's incredible. If you hit on half of your sales targets, that's still really, really great. The overwhelming majority of good and great salesmen and recruiters have more misses than hits. It is, I mean, I don't want to say it never happens, but it is significantly rare for a recruiter to hit on more kids that he recruits than misses. And think about like just the numbers of that. There are literally hundreds of players in each class who are going to make it to the NFL one day. You can't take hundreds of kids per class. You can't take 100 kids per class. You can't take 50 per class. Most of the time, you can't even take 30 kids per class. The elite programs are going to select who they want. But after that, I mean, everyone else kind of has to play the game of dominoes and grab as many big-time recruiting wins as possible before they hit their scholarship limit in each class. Which, honestly, with NIL, it's kind of out the door now, too, because you can just create an NIL deal that magically compensates for the cost of a scholarship. Anyway, Florida's had a lot of misses recently. David Sanders, five-star offensive tackle from Charlotte, lost him early, never really expected to be a finalist of his, but that is an elite talent and an important position, and there was some interest there early at a position of need, couldn't get there. Miss. DJ Pickett, five-star defensive back from Tampa. Another miss, a really bad miss there. Not even making it to the final three for a five-star kid out of Tampa. That's bad. And I know that there, in every case here, there are some circumstances that aren't necessarily the most talked about. I understand there were coaching changes at Florida in the secondary, in fact, everywhere on the defense for that matter. I understand all that, but there's still the bottom line of a five-star from Tampa that you don't get. To not even make the finals of his list. Not good. Hilton Stubbs, top 10 safety in the country out of Jacksonville. Another miss going, way back to the start, really. The miss came when he committed to USC. He did flip. Florida was trying to get him to change his mind, but not to Florida. Instead, rival Miami got him. A Jacksonville kid choosing to still go kind of far away from home. Technically it is in state, Jacksonville and Miami, but that's not really close to staying home. Miami's a long way from Jacksonville. That's a good, 6 hours in the car? That's farther than Gainesville to Atlanta is. You almost have to fly that. The come home sell doesn't really work for Miami. They still got him. Solomon Thomas, another miss, FSU commit. Florida lost him pretty early on. He's been committed to the Noles for quite some time now. Florida's going to keep trying to flip him. I don't know that one is over, but as of now, another miss. Riley Pettyjohn, big-time linebacker out of Texas, goes to Ohio State, and that's another piece of fallout the Gators are still feeling from the loss of Joe Hamilton, essentially their Texas relationship guy on the recruiting trail. Would Florida have gotten him if Hamilton was still on staff? I don't know. We never will know. But this was pretty much over the minute Hamilton left, even with Lagway on the roster by then. But it only takes a few commitments to change the outlook. And after only having 4 guys committed, that class doubled in size in the span of 9 days with the 3 pass catchers plus Hayden Craig, the punter. And then Miles Johnson made 9. And hopefully Burnell Brown will add himself to the class as well. And at that point, it becomes a matter of, okay, people were obviously a little worried about Florida. They were wary of some things with the Gators after 2 pretty bad seasons. We'll just keep it respectable, but keep it real. 2 pretty bad seasons. But, okay, there seemed to be other guys who were at peace with the explanation that Napier gives, essentially, for why those seasons went so badly, enough to commit to his program. Maybe I should go check it out. Maybe I should. Oh, Florida just beat Miami. That was a nationally televised game. Okay. Oh, they beat A&M too. Okay. A&M, new coach, not really a world beater right now, but okay. The Gators are making some noise. Maybe I could check them out. the Gators are getting themselves to the point where they're not going to need an absolute avalanche of good things to happen on the recruiting trail during the season. You have to lock some of them up in the offseason. And the Gators, if Verno Brown commits, you can say, heading into the month of August, they're in a good position to enter the actual season with enough momentum that recruiting wins can start to come and won't have to come in bunches. Other things to notate on the recruiting trail: Michigan grabbing Ivan Taylor from Notre Dame. Florida was looking to flip the 4-star safety away from the Irish. Instead, it's Michigan that does that. Auburn defensive line commit Malik Autry says what everyone already knows, but still notable that he says it. Florida winning games is going to dictate if they have a shot to flip him, which, again, I think we could all figure that out. But again, the noteworthy piece here is he is saying that in public. Also, recent commit Tayshawn Gelsey, as we alluded to earlier, just got bumped up from a 3-star to a 4-star. That was nice. Tavion Wallace, a 4-star linebacker that was thought to be down to Florida and FSU, but seemed to be leaning FSU, chose neither of the two and went to Arkansas, which was not ideal for Florida. Not the end of the world, but definitely not ideal. That was a bad miss for FSU. Although, again, they can afford it. Their class is definitely looking better than Florida's right now. Last piece of info to note on the recruiting trail: another Auburn commit, Ja'Caleb Falk, says he's still considering the Gators. That's a 4-star linebacker. Definitely won't be easy, but still good to know. Florida does have a chance with him. Of course, it could just be lip service. Maybe he wants a nicer bag from Auburn, but nonetheless, it's at least leaving the door ajar for the Gators to maybe pull something off there if they win enough games in 24. So that is recruiting. That is the roundup from the past few weeks. It is definitely better than it looked a month ago, but there is still a very long way to go. So now, some other sports news and notes. Basketball. Point guard Urban Kladzar from Slovenia committing to the Gators. Todd Golden really working on his international recruiting, and this is the big one. This guy shot 48% from the field and 43% from three in his Spanish league last year. And a lot of things don't really translate super well from across the world. Different parts of the globe have different calibers of players, different styles maybe, but typically shooting the ball does, at least somewhat. I mean, you are dealing with different levels of defenders, but still there's the concentration and mechanics that go into it. So big get there for Todd Golden, who has definitely improved his roster again after taking a pretty sizable leap forward, even after losing Colin Castleton from year 1 to year 2, seems to have taken another step towards a better roster, his roster has taken steps, I should say, and has upgraded from year 2 to year 3. Gator baseball season coming to a very sad end after a tremendous run to the national semifinals. That's the second straight year and the 5th time in 9 years that Florida has made it to the Final Four of college baseball, which is insane to think about. 2015, 2017, which they won, 2018, 2023, which they made it one game short. That game is going to haunt me forever. But, it is what it is now. And then 2024, there was no tournament in 2020. So 5 out of 9 seasons, they're in the Final Four of college baseball. That is difficult to do in football. Only Ohio State and Alabama, I think, have done that. Maybe Clemson. That is unheard of in college baseball, where there's so much randomness and just unpredictability and luck that goes into all of it. And honestly, when we're talking about canon and the history books being written, this season kind of makes up for 2014. The two cancel each other out. When Florida won the SEC and was number 2 overall in the NCAA tournament and was expected to make a deep run to Omaha, but instead got swept out of its own regional by the College of Charleston and North Carolina in 2 games. Now this year, 10 years later, you have a Florida team that, really cut it close in terms of making the NCAA tournament. They literally made it by 1 game. Their overall record is 1 game worse than it was, and they're not eligible for the tournament because they'd have a losing record. And as it was, they weren't expected to make it out of their regional round or maybe even win a game in the regional as the regional 3 seed in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And then there they are in the national semifinals 2.5 weeks later. Oh, by the way, knocking out a very annoying Kentucky team and Nick Mingione with a 15-4 sledgehammering along the way. So when the Gator baseball history books are written, the number of top 8 seeds are going to match the number of trips to Omaha since this current format began, minus 1, which was the 09 team, which was number 8 overall and lost in the Supers to Southern Miss. Anyway, in that 15-4 beatdown of Kentucky, Florida got to officially anoint Jack Caglione as the GOAT. Jack Caglione, now departing the program, dearly departed, as officially the greatest player in Gator baseball history. And that is not hyperbole. He is the Gators' single season and all-time home run king. He is the all-time home run king in college baseball in the BB Corbett era since 2010. His 2024 season average of 419 is the second highest of any season any Gator baseball player has ever had. Only Alan Trammell in 1965 had a better average in a single season of 425. Cags is Florida's single season total bases king, Florida's single season slugging percentage king with 875. And oh, by the way, on top of all of that, he was also an above average SEC level pitcher, which I don't know that I'd call him, objectively speaking, an elite pitcher, but certainly very good. He's certainly a quality SEC pitching arm on top of all those hitting records. And if you're not a huge baseball fan, think about it like this. Florida baseball just had essentially the Tim Tebow of baseball, who on top of everything else he did, like you've got Tim Tebow, the quarterback, with all the skills, all the records he sets. And in that same player is also a Jonathan Bullard type of defensive lineman, or like a Quincy Wilson level quarterback, or a Antonio Morrison level linebacker. And Quincy, by the way, not the shoe throwing guy. Quincy, his older brother, who is pretty good for Florida. So that's Caglione, and it's going to suck to lose him. Future is bright, of course. It always is. Florida recruits very, very well. But that's for another day. We'll talk about that more down the road. But the Gators should be fine. They'll never have another Jack Caglione. There will never be another Jack Caglione. No, not for Florida, not for anybody else. So, Cags, tip of the cap to you, sir. It was an honor to have you on our show before the season. We wish you all the best. Also out the door for the Gators, Brandon Neely. That sucks. I mean, he was a great closer for us, gave us a lot of great performances in the postseason when it really, really mattered this year after a really good overall 2023 season, but then struggling a bit in the regular season in 24. He came through when it mattered. Really going to miss him. Also, in that same vein, Cade Fisher, another pitcher, the guy Sully actually chose as the Friday night guy to start the year. Didn't work out. He's off for the portal as well. But again, noteworthy for him, he came through when he had to. Came through last year against Texas Tech in the regional. Saved Florida by coming through against Oral Roberts. And really, really awful spot. An unprecedented spot with a new rule after Sully essentially couldn't count to 6 and basically ejected Brandon Neely from the game. Fisher, I mean, also a guy that he ate up a lot of innings in must-have wins in the postseason this year. Against Oklahoma State comes to mind in the regional, then again against North Carolina State in the World Series. Frankly, Florida would not have made it as far as they did without him. So going to miss him as well. Handful of others also hitting the portal. Michael Robertson, the great center fielder, who came through with walk-offs against Georgia last year and most notably against Clemson this year in the Supers to send the Gators to Omaha. Also made an incredible catch to save Florida against TCU. He's gone. I actually don't know that I would call him a great center fielder. You know, keep it respectful, but keep it real. I don't know that I'd call him great. I would call him a serviceable center fielder who was always great when he needed to be. So he came through in the clutch as well. Fits that mold of Gators like Cade Fisher. Also hitting the portal, pitcher Alex Philpott, catcher Blake Brookins, pitcher Riley Whitmer, pitcher Jacob Romberg, pitcher Robert Satin, all going to the transfer portal. A couple of them, like Philpott, do have the do not contact label on their entry, which very well might mean that they're going to come back. In fact, I would say they probably will, but most of those guys are going to be playing elsewhere next year. Last few pieces of Gator news and notes. Parker Valby, Gator track star, is the 2024 SEC Female Athlete of the Year. And she's going to Paris for the 2024 Olympics. We'll be sure to cheer her on there in the 10,000 meter race. She is one of 34 Gators to be competing in the Olympics this month, 13 of which come from the swimming program, highlighted by, of course, Caleb Dressel, who's already got 7 gold medals, and Bobby Fink, his teammate, who already has 2 from Tokyo in 2021. Others include Nick Kalathis, former Gator basketball player, going to be playing for Team Greece. Valby's former Florida track teammate, Anna Hall, the girlfriend of Florida tennis alum Ben Shelton, going to be running for USA as well. Kenyon Barry, a former Gator basketball player, will be playing for Florida's 3-on-3 basketball team. And Grant Holloway, the male track star, he'll be there too. Won a silver in Tokyo in 2021. He'll be looking for his first gold. And speaking of Ben Shelton, made it to the round of 16 in Wimbledon. He's stuck just outside the top 10 players in the world. This result in London is going to help him, as it's farther than he got last year. He keeps winning matches and getting ranking points. He could very well be in the top 10 in the world heading into the US Open, where he reached the semifinals last year. So that's our show. We covered a lot today. Sorry about the hiatus. We will be back with more content as Chris knocks out his exams. I keep progressing through my job training. Hopefully we can get Mike on a couple more shows. But that's where things stand with the Florida Gators today. If you like the show, please be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That always helps. And be sure to tell your friends that this is the show that keeps it respectful, but keeps it real while ensuring that y'all stay up to date on everything Florida Gators. We do cover football primarily. Baseball and basketball, I'd say, are our secondary focus, along with softball probably. But we do make sure to keep y'all up to date on the major news and happenings of all Gator sports, because we are the everything school. So until next time, in all kinds of weather, we all stick together for FLORIDA.